Hey guys, welcome back to the Light Side Podcast. My name is Sholeh. I'm your host, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Light Side. We are going to do a part 2 for the manifestation stories I shared last week because so much kept coming to mind, and I heard feedback from you, and I actually ran a poll on my Instagram story yesterday and got feedback that we should do more stories. So here we are going to maintain the momentum on this topic. I hope that it provides you with inspiration and hope on your manifestations and encourages you to keep believing, keep affirming what you're calling into your life experience, because so much happens behind the scenes that we don't see, that we don't have visibility to. And how we experience this moment right now is all we can really control, so that while things are happening on the back end, behind the scenes, that we're enjoying our now moment and aligning our energy to what's meant to come into our life. I truly hope that this episode provides as a faith boost for you to consider how everything that you want and dream of is really going to happen for you, or something better will. And it's only a matter of time for it to be revealed to you. Everything has its own timing. Last week, I shared some of my biggest manifestation stories to some daily ones. Go back and listen to that episode if you haven't already. Those were some pivotal manifestations that really embedded the belief that I have in manifesting, in the law of attraction, really what I view as a form of praying, and really praying and asking for what you want and giving thanks for it. I think it's also fun to share some of my family or friends' manifestation stories just to provide as a faith boost. I'm hoping to close with some key takeaways, lessons, and learnings from the stories that I'm going to share today, as well as a fun exercise for you to take away and apply. So let's get into it. Okay, so much to get into. I especially love the stories of New York City and how serendipitous everything turned out to be, but also how much I was able to manifest. It was what keeps being reiterated to me is that timing and the how is where the mystery and the fun is, and where we really need to surrender. But we'll get into that. So one of the first stories that I want to share is related to how you can kind of let go of some of the things that you need to do and trust it over to the universe. I think a lot of times, and this is something that Abraham Hicks emphasizes a lot of times we have the tendency to want to be a productivity machine and get everything done, and myself included. I'm very much like in the habit and the pattern of that. But what really tends to be super fun to play around with is making a list of all the things that you want to do, all the things that you need to get done, and also seeing how much of it gets done for you. There's been so many times, even recently, when I've needed to make a change in my schedule, and I put an intention that I'm going to reach out to this person by this time to move our appointment, move our conversation. And before that time happens, they reach out to do that exact thing. It's so mind-blowing, but you guys, give this a try. Make a list of all the things that you need to do and see which of them come about for you. And there's no expectation, right? But there's a big chance that you'll be pleasantly surprised. And this happened recently. Garrett and I were talking, and he was telling me how he needs to move back something with one of his clients. And I told him to just try this method. Just, put it on your to-do list, have an intention of reaching out to them by X time. And lo and behold, the person reached out to him before that time and asked if they could move the appointment by the same time frame that he needed it to be. It was so mind-blowing, and he became a big believer because in certain situations, right, it's not that you're becoming a procrastinator, you're just making a list of things that you need to do in order of priority, and the universe will help you get it done And ideally, like, yes, if it's like a massive priority that, it's for something happening in the next hour, yes, don't hold off, but confident that you can discern which of your items you need to get done today that need to get done and which things are maybe of lesser priority that can be done later. I think it's just really fun to experiment with and see and really witness to it. Another thing that I put out into the universe recently and just came about last week was I saw the lineup of Coachella for this year, which happens in April, and I took a screenshot of it and I sent it to my best friend that I had gone to Coachella with previously because the lineup has one of my favorite artists, Lana Del Rey, and was thinking to myself, this would be so fun to go to, but realistically not going to happen this year because of just logistics and my priorities, etc. And I just like let it go. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't share any of that. It's just what I was thinking. And last week, Garrett texted me with a screenshot asking if I want to go to Coachella. Like, I was so mind blown. It was such a crazy, just the sequence of that event. Like, I was so surprised. I immediately was like, oh my God, I think I manifested this. And it's just so fun to see how things play out. Again, I had completely let it go. I had no expectations. I just thought it would be fun, put it out there and let it go. I mean, of course, there are certain things that you want to happen more adamantly, and those are the things we put more energy towards, and those are the things that become a little bit harder to get. But I think that's the beauty of all of it, is when we look back, especially when some time has passed, you see that it does happen just in its own timing. So for instance, a really fun story for this just came to mind. In 2022, I was looking for yoga retreats to go to. This is when I was at the peak of burnout. I was not doing well mentally and physically in every way. I just was really at one of my lowest points in life. And I was thinking of going to Costa Rica for a yoga retreat. And while I was looking on the website of retreats, I saw a retreat that was being held in Maui on a farm. It said it was isolated, secluded, without really any reception. And I just felt really drawn to that. And so I saved it and I was like, okay, let me think on this. Because for one, I was only looking in Costa Rica. I wasn't looking to go to Hawaii, but earlier that year, I still have my list of things I was manifesting for 2022. And I had written of the places I wanted to travel. Hawaii was on that list. I had lived in California. I'd been on the West Coast, but I had never been to Hawaii. And it was always at the top of my list. But just a place that was super far to get to from New York. And every time I came out west, I came to California, etc. So for a lot of different reasons, it never worked out. But I feel so blessed that I kept thinking about the retreat, and it was only, I want to say it was only a couple weeks out when I booked it, and the entire experience just felt so divinely timed. It felt so just aligned and synchronistic, because while we were on the retreat, so much happened that helped me, one, connect right off the bat. In the car when we got picked up from the airport, I had already hit it off with one of the girls in the car. But as time went on, every single person on the retreat just was such good energy. We were all going through similar things. Either we were going through a major life change, we were changing jobs, people were leaving cities, moving to new places. Just really every single one of us was going through a pretty pivotal change, and it just felt like a very safe, peaceful place, especially with no cell connectivity, the morning routines. There's so much that I gained from this retreat. But one of the things that we did that really stuck with me was we did these manifestation circles. And at this point, I'm already very much into manifesting, love manifesting, right? We're like many years into my manifesting life, into my manifestation belief at this point. It's 2022. So we would sit around these manifestation circles and we would imagine and envision each other's manifestations after each of us spoke out what we wanted. And it was so powerful. so super powerful that to this day, people will send messages about their manifestations, but especially a few weeks thereafter, like it was the months after where people were like, oh my God, I manifested X. Like, somebody was manifesting a move, somebody was manifesting a partner, somebody was manifesting their visa, somebody was manifesting a baby and they got pregnant. There was just so much. And I realized this past year when I went to Maui, when I went back to Maui for yoga teacher training, that what I was manifesting during those circles was becoming a coach and hosting retreats, hosting inner growth workshops, doing this work that we were doing on the retreat. It just felt so aligned with me and my soul, and it just felt so good. And I realized as I was landing in Hawaii that, wait, my manifestation is live, because, as I was like on the plane, I was writing down things that I want to walk away out of this 3 weeks with, my intentions for the trip. And it hit me that, oh my goodness, we were doing those manifestation circles. We were putting our energy out there for each other. And now it's happening. Like a year later, I'm back on the island and I am doing what I put out there that I wanted to do. Of course, it required action. I think emphasis on action. A lot of times, especially what I just shared, the prior example of like handing it over to the universe, some things we need to do, some things we need to take action on. But being very clear and open, we see that sometimes the things that we need to do get done for us. I'm sure you've had experiences when you think about someone and you want to call them and they call you, or you want to talk to someone and you run into them, or you want a book. This just came to my mind. I remember literally starting a day at my apartment in New York City before I moved, my intention being, okay, I'm going to start writing. I want to start reading a new book. It was one of my intentions for the day, was to like look into a new book to read. Literally went to work in the office at my desk because I had registered for an event. It was a GS talk. It's like a TED talk, but the GS version. It literally said, this book is a gift from the event. I was just like floored. I literally had just written that I want to start reading a new book. And the book is actually really relevant in terms of, I believe it was a title on how to make your work more fun and how to add more humor to your workspace. Is very relevant at the time. And I just remember being floored by it. And I shared it on my Instagram at the time too. Going back to the retreat, like I had one of my really good friends from this past yoga teacher training that I just did. I honestly and truly feel so blessed for every single one of the people I met on the yoga teacher training. And one of my friends, Gabby, who was on the podcast a few episodes ago, if you haven't heard the episode on what it means to be health conscious, I highly recommend it. It's truly remarkably life-changing and valuable stuff to know for your overall health and well-being. But she reached out to me and we've been talking about hosting a retreat together. It's a dream come true, honestly, because I've dreamt about having a spa, a retreat for a very long time. I've always loved the energy of spas. I mean, I know it's not having my own spa, but hosting a retreat is very close, and it's exactly what I envisioned for my manifestations when I was in Hawaii manifesting with our yoga retreat group in August of 2022. Speaking of my friend's manifestation for getting pregnant and how that played out, like I hear this a lot, and I think it's probably my age group, my friends, but a lot of people I hear a lot of times, a lot of stories about pregnancies, how difficult it is for some people to get pregnant, and really it being a source of stress. And what I have learned through my friends, I had over 10 friends get pregnant over the last couple years. And I know more than 10 people that have gotten pregnant over the last year or so. And what each of them have shared has been that it happened when they had completely let go of it or weren't expecting it. So I had a friend who literally got pregnant as soon as she got married because of all the stories she had heard of everyone that she knew had gotten pregnant after many, many tries, after many, many months. And as soon as they tried, they got pregnant. I think it was because they didn't expect it to happen. And really, I think there's this energy that we put out there when we really want something that it almost resists it because we expect it. And so that's why it's so important to let go of expectation energy, to be thankful. It's like this, like I can understand how so much of the manifestation advice can be contradictory because we say, expect it and be thankful for it, but don't expect it. But what I mean by that is like, don't expect it by waiting around and having this neediness energy towards it, but believe that it's going to happen and be grateful for it so you can align with it. I hope that that creates a distinction on what we mean when we say expect it, but don't expect it. Expect it in the sense that be thankful, that believe in it so much so, and be thankful for it so much so that it's only inevitable that it will happen, and that you're going with your life, living your life, being happy with what is. And then also, don't expect it because when you do, don't expect it in the sense of wanting it to happen yesterday, wanting it to happen today already, that you push it away because you're matching the energy of not having it. You are aligning with the lacking of it because your feelings align more with how it is without it, because your feelings are affirming that you're lacking it because you want it more. I know that this can get confusing, so let me know if you have any questions. I hope that I'm explaining in a way that is helping it click even more. But the same thing honestly happened with my sister. They were trying for their pregnancy with their first baby for a while, and then the second one was an accident. And I honestly think that we put so much pressure on ourselves that the pressure and the stress stops it from happening. I mean, that feels like the mystery of life, right? But at the same time, it's also in so many writings to just accept and be grateful for what you have. And I feel like that's all it is, while also exercising your desire for more. It's like this balancing act of gratitude, of what we talked about last week, of praise and gratitude. But okay, now moving on. I think my apartment in New York, my last apartment before I moved in New York, has to be one of the most incredible manifestation stories. But before I go into that, it just popped into my mind how I re-met my friend Kayla in New York after I had known her in Salt Lake. So you guys, this is my second apartment in New York City. My first apartment, I FaceTimed and saw it from afar, and it was like a month-to-month deal, but I signed for at least 3 months. And then once I got there, I decided that I needed to move. And so I was manifesting friends, like-minded friends. Actually, where do I start? Okay, struggling to think where to start with this story, but ultimately what happened was I was on the GS bulletin board and I was looking for available places, available apartments. And there was a unit that I really liked. It looked very new, renovated, beautiful, within budget. So I go into it to click in and send them a message. And when I go to do that, the person who had listed was one of my really good friends. It was somebody I had met in Utah during the internship. And she was such an incredible soul who is now truly one of the most incredible people I know, and one of my dearest and best friends. I'm actually a bridesmaid for her wedding this summer. I click into it and I'm like, no freaking way. It's Kayla. And so I messaged her being like, Kayla, I knew you had moved to New York, but I had completely forgot about it because Kayla had moved to New York. I had moved to California and we had lost touch, but I had lost track of how many people had moved to New York. And so had it not been for this apartment situation, I wouldn't have necessarily reconnected with her. But it was literally sometime in those few days that I went to see the apartment. The person that opened the door is one of my other best friends who is so near and dear to my heart. I have so many incredible life experiences and memories and opportunities because I knew her. I actually went and stayed with her in London after she moved out of New York City. Now she's back in New York. She's one of my best friends as well. And that moment of needing to change my apartment made so many things connect. I made really incredible aligned friends that were just so serendipitously connected to other friends. I met my best friend Rowan through them. I met so many other people. Kayla invited me to the Hamptons with a group of friends that had rented a house. I met Carly, just so many of my really, really good friends through just needing to change my apartment. So at first, needing to change my apartment was a big inconvenience. I was really frustrated with myself for having seen that apartment just on FaceTime. But let me tell you this, you guys. Just realizing now, that apartment was so meant to be in my experience of moving to New York, because had I not lived there, listen to how meant to be it was. Once I moved to New York, I had made a status post that I had moved. This was back when people used Facebook to show where they were moving to. And one of my friends from college reached out to me being like, oh my God, no way. Like, I'm in New York too. Whereabouts are you moving? And I gave her the coordinates of my apartment that I was going to move to. And she was like, no way. Is it building XYZ? I said, yes. And she said, I live in that building too. And so right before going to New York, I already had a friend living in that building. And then what's even crazier is one of Natasha's friends that I had met out here in LA reached out to me being like, Sholeh, I have a really good friend that moved to New York a few years ago. She's also Persian. She lives there. You guys should become friends. So she connected us through Messenger on Facebook and left it at that. She messaged me separately. My dear friend Netta, she messaged me separately being like, Sholeh, I'm having my birthday. Please come out. It's going to be at this. It was at an art gallery. I was super excited. It was the first party I was invited to going to New York. And it was in February. So I moved in early January. So it was just about a month later. And I said, great. And so while I was working at Goldman one morning, I was super busy. Somebody was picking up something from my apartment. I want to say I had sold my old iPhone or something. And somebody was coming to pick it up from the doorman. And I meant to send them the address of my apartment. And instead, I sent it to Netta in a text. And she sent me a question mark and was like, wait, is this your address? And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to send that to you. Yes, that's where I live. Haha. And she said, oh my God, I live there too. I'm apartment. And she was a floor above me. It was so crazy. She lived a floor above me, and my friend from college lived a floor below me. So like, what are the odds, right? Like the likelihood of that, it just blows my mind. New York City is massive, and how many residences there are. There's so many buildings across Manhattan and Brooklyn, and just in general, it's the biggest city in the United States. And of all the apartments that I FaceTime with that I chose, the apartment that I moved into happened to be a building where I knew two people who ended up becoming really close friends of mine, really pivotal to my life. Like, needing to move out of there was another blessing in disguise. At first, it was a big annoyance, but it happened to be such a blessing because I met my best friends from there and lifelong friends whose many weddings I've been to, who've had many of my life experiences with, and so much travels, so many experiences. And I will never forget just how, as everything was unfolding and falling into place and unraveling, how serendipitous it all felt. Like, I just remember being in awe. It felt so magical that so many people that I knew ended up being friends with each other. Like, friend circles kept getting bigger. our connections were all so interlaced. Like I could not wrap my head around how all of our friends continued to connect and be friends. And there are millions of people in New York City. So when you're able to find familiar faces from high school and college and past internships like years before, it just felt so incredibly awe-inspiring. Even how the move turned out, like moving into Kayla and Sophie's apartment, it was such a spacious apartment with a washer and dryer. The girl that was moving out helped me with her mom to physically move in. Like I've never heard anybody offer anyone the option to move in to their apartment. Literally, like her and her mom came to my old apartment that I was moving out of, and they helped me pack up all my luggages because the apartment I had rented was furnished, and helped me move into her apartment that she was leaving, the one that I was taking over in Kayla and Sophie's apartment. And she even gave me this really incredible bed frame that she had from Bloomingdale's. Like, honestly and truly, it was like an angel had come into my life to help me get out of a situation that I was in, and planted me right in the midst of my best friends and my future group of people that became my support system and my tribe. Like the odds of that just feel so slim. Her and her mom drove all the way from downtown Manhattan to Midtown and drove me back and helped me load and unload their car to live in this apartment. Like, what? It just goes to say how much life can have in store for you, how much momentum can really build once you take the nudges and you take the leap of faith. Now, none of this would have happened if I wouldn't have left California to begin with, right? And so sometimes when we're stuck, we're feeling like things aren't moving along. Maybe it's a nudge, maybe it's a sign that we aren't following and we're not where we really need to be in order for that momentum to kick in, to pick up. And I do think that it is in our ability to be so engrossed with where you are, to be so dedicated to making it the best it can be for you, for your experience, to accept it and be fully engaged with it as much as you can in order for it to unravel the way you want it to. Okay, so many stories are coming to my mind. My mind is like, I do have ADHD, you guys. I didn't discover it until I had gone to Bali with my girlfriends this past year. We were looking at videos. My friend Kim, who has her PhD in psychology and is a therapist and hypnotherapist, she was like showing me these videos for ADHD. And I was like, I feel like this is a little generic. Don't you think? Like, doesn't everybody experience these? And she looks at me, she's like, no. And I was like, wait, let me see these. And I literally had every single one. And that's when I learned, literally, so sad to say, I was like, what, at the time, today years old, just kidding. When I learned that I have ADHD in my 30s, it's just like, whew. I mean, she reassured me that I must have high performing ADHD, but still, like, when I'm trying to tell a story, my mind goes in so many places. I'm like, but to tell you this and to tell you that. And so that was one thing I had to really work on, was the limiting belief that I had heard from other people that I'm a terrible storyteller. And so it took a lot of work for me to really overcome that. Sorry for the side tangent, but if you resonate with that, I think it's just so powerful for us to work on our limiting beliefs. Like even sharing these manifestation stories, like I realized that I could have started sharing these like 2 years ago or even prior to that, but there's so many underlying beliefs that are our blind spots that we don't realize we have. That's why there are blind spots that hold us back in so many ways. And so we can try to do it on our own. We can try to journal on our own. We can try to do a lot of digging, but it does help to have a coach. And if this is something that you want to work on, that you want to invest your energy on, it is honestly the best investment of your time. I'd love to help you with that. I've always had a coach and I can't recommend it enough. If this interests you, reach out to me. We can always chat. There's no obligation, no pressure, but just something to consider. The other story that I wanted to share is my apartment in New York City. Okay, so the latest apartment. I cannot express enough how shocked I was when I saw this apartment and the views, and how it was the exact replica of the views that my friend had when I had first moved to New York City and had gone to his place. So when I first moved to New York, my friend was doing an exchange program with the New York City office. And so Goldman had given him an apartment or housing for 6 months, and they'd given it to him at the W residence downtown, which is super nice. As you may know, it's a hotel that has an extension that is the residences. And so they're like bigger units. And he had such an incredible, beautiful space with views of Manhattan, literally from the World Trade Center up to Midtown. You can see Empire State, the Square area. It just has a really, really incredible view. Well, if you've been on my Instagram and have seen my stories, those are exactly my views, my last apartment before I moved. But the way it manifested is just so jaw-dropping. So I was on a hunt. This was around the COVID timeframe. And so there was a surplus of apartment availability historically and previously, based on my experience firsthand. When you wanted to go find an apartment, you literally were like battling with a ton of other people looking for apartments. So there were times when Kayla and I were looking for an apartment together, or even just myself when I was looking for studios. We would have an appointment or we would see an open house on StreetEasy. And as soon as we'd get there, there were already 10 applications on there. Or apartments would literally fly off the market. So it was really, really hard to secure something. But during COVID, that wasn't the case. There was a lot of people leaving the city, or they were living back home in Long Island or New Jersey. And so there weren't as many people. And so we were having return to office and etc. And so I was looking at a lot of apartments. I initially wanted to live in Gramercy Park because it's beautiful. I love that it's closer to Midtown East. I just love that area. And I love how historic it is and has so much character and charm for many, many reasons. And so I was looking at apartments there, and I did see some. They just weren't necessarily sitting with me. Like, they didn't capture my heart. It wasn't my place. I didn't find anything that was like, oh my God, I need to move in here. And it wasn't until I expanded that reach to look at places downtown as well, like Financial District or Battery Park, that I found this place. And really, the reason why I didn't want to is because I thought, you know what, with us working from home more, it will be fun to live somewhere where I can experience a different neighborhood, because I had already lived downtown at the time I was living in Tribeca. I had been living there for 4 years. And so I thought it'd be fun to experience a different part of Manhattan. And if you've been to New York, like, you know that each area it feels like its own city. So it's just fun to experiment and experience different parts of town. And so I decided to expand that. And one of the first apartments I saw had these incredible views. And at first I thought they had photoshopped it. I was like, this looks a little surreal. Like, with this pricing, like with this budget, it doesn't really sound right. And so I scheduled an appointment and I went and saw, and it was really good. It was spacious. It was huge. And I was kind of focused on the little things. Like, I didn't like how certain things in the apartment felt a little on the cheap side, or they were like easy fixes. Then I learned that is the same building that my best friend Rowan had lived in. And I realized that. And as I was talking to the broker, he said, you know what? We don't have this apartment listed, but we have the same unit available. It's a 1-bedroom, really spacious 1-bedroom for New York City. Is like a little over, I think it was around 750 square feet, several closet spaces, like 4 or 5 closet spaces, and just huge living room, high ceilings. He said, I think we have the same unit, but on the 25th floor. And it's just, we just haven't listed it on StreetEasy. Do you want to check it out? I was like, sure. So we go and see it. But to be honest, I wasn't super sold because my friend had told me that the building wasn't the best. And so we went up, and I didn't like the floors, but as you keep walking, the view just gets grander and grander. These rooms are spacious. The light is incredible. Like, wow, what a difference those like 8 floors had made in the view. Like, incredible, incredibly different. And so we went in, and he told me the price, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't that much of a difference. I think it was the same. And he said that they would be willing to give me a deal. And I remember being really worried about the grounds, the floor not being renovated or, kind of outdated and making sounds. But then, immediately thereafter, I was like solutionizing that I could have like rugs and etc. You guys, this apartment was huge. Like, it was one of those apartments that can be converted into a 2-bedroom and still have living space. Like, it was very spacious, but the natural light, the sunshine, again, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen pictures of this. This place was so beautiful. And so I told the guy that I'm very keen on making sure like, the bathrooms, the showers, like everything are in tip-top shape. And so I wanted to come back and check out the showers and such later. And so it happened that when I returned back to the apartment to do that, it was nighttime. And at nighttime, with all the lights shining, was when it was crystal clear, when I was standing by the windows, that it was the same exact view of my friend's apartment, which I told, I wish my place had a view like this. And that is the incredible power of manifesting. Like, you put out there something that you love, that you would love to experience, and then life somehow unravels and surprises you. Like, that blew my mind so much. I decided, you know what, I want to come and see this apartment again. And when I did, it really struck out to me because I was so focused on the details on the inside. The view just was like in my face with all the lights on, the World Trade Center, the downtown, the Jersey City view, the reflection of Jersey City in the Hudson River, the Empire State, the view of Times Square. Like, you can see so much from this unit. And then it hit me as I'm standing between those windows. This is the same exact view of Steven's apartment. And I literally was just floored. I was shocked. And of course, thanks to social media, I have a picture of that exact view when I took it in 2015 or 16. I remember the moment of taking that picture because I posted it right away. And I remember thinking, how incredible would it be to live here? And I'm pretty sure that I told Steven, I said, how incredible would it be to have this view? And he was like, I'm sure you can. Like, just ask your family. And I laughed because I'm like, my family doesn't help me. What are you talking about? But it was very, very surreal. And you guys, the price that I got it at, it was like it was a good 50% discount, like from what it usually would be. And right now, it's actually triple the amount. Oh my God, I'm totally forgetting to share this important, pivotal part of how I lost the apartment and how I ended up getting it back and moving in. This is so crazy. I can't even make this up. I took a second. I was trying to make a decision, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to pay the application fee before being 100%. So by the time I decided to apply, somebody else had applied for my apartment. So it was a big sting. I remember being like, oh my God, I applied. And once I applied, the guy called me and he said, he actually texted me, he said, hey, I'm so sorry, but it looks like somebody else, the other person applied and they got approved. So I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do, but I can show you more apartments on Monday if you want. This was a long weekend in September. I remember because I had made it my goal to secure my apartment by that weekend because I was moving by the end of September. So my goal was that I would be all confirmed about what apartment I'm moving into. I was honestly devastated. I was like, this can't be true. I remember going to bed and just thinking about what it would feel like. I started putting manifestation into practice. I was like thinking about what it would feel like to wake up to those views. I was thinking about how it would feel to walk into that apartment every night, what it would feel like to have that apartment and how I would decorate it. I was thinking about how I felt. I was just like really excited. So one would think like, okay, you're crazy. You just got told that somebody else got the apartment that you wanted and you're still daydreaming about it. But I just like continued to feel that way. I just continued to think, you know what? It's going to happen. So I emailed the building separately. I emailed the management being like, do you have any other units similar to this? I was like making some effort, but at the same time, I was like, okay, what's meant to be will be. Like, I'm doing my best. Like, I had a mentality of it is what it is, but I was still manifesting it. If you catch my drift, like it's just a feeling, really. And so I decided to allow it to be, allow it to happen. And you guys, you will not believe this. I got a phone call. Well, you will, because spoiler alert, already happened. But I got a phone call the very next day from this guy. He says, Sholeh, you're not going to believe this. They backed out. They don't want the apartment anymore. Do you still want it? And I still remember this moment. I was like smiling from cheek to cheek. I was like, are you serious? Of course I want it. Wait, is this a joke? I was like, are you playing a prank on me? He's like, no, of course not. Why would I do that? I'm like, I don't know, because I can't believe it. But a part of me really believed that it would happen because I was visualizing it. I was feeling the feelings of it. I was really still calling it in through believing in it and thinking about how I'll feel, what I'll do, and still believed in it. And so that was it. I signed the papers. And really what ended up happening was my roommate at the time, the reason why her and I were moving out was because we each wanted our own place, but also because our rent was going up a lot more than we wanted to. And so she ended up like working with the same guy and she got an apartment in that building too. So we moved at the same time. Meanwhile, I was telling her about it as I was seeing the apartment. Of course, we were roommates and friends. And so she ended up like finding a place in that building and we ended up using the same movers and moved on the same day into just different units. And so we cleared out our apartment at the same time. And it was just nice having a friend in that building. She's actually still there in that building. To top all of this off, the following year, they sent me a letter trying to increase my rent by like 40%. It was a very dramatic amount. And I remember being like, shoot, like this isn't going to happen. Like, why didn't I sign a 2-year lease? I remember my best friend being like, why didn't you sign a 2-year lease? I was like, I don't know, maybe something better will come around. What ended up happening is I sent them a very genuine email. I said, look, like this is the most I can afford. Like, but 40% increase is just very unreasonable for me. Like usually buildings change their rate by like 5%, 3%. I don't know. I think there was like an average amount, but because that building wasn't governed under rent control laws, they can do whatever they want essentially. But I explained to them and it was so mind-blowing, you guys. I had a couple emails back and forth. I just kind of let it go. I was like, you know what? I remember being on a trip in California and thinking like, what am I going to do? How is this going to unfold? And I put out to the universe. I said, if I'm meant to stay in New York, please only increase my rent by $50. And that's how I'll know. You guys, I kid you not, I had said in my email to the building that I would be willing to do up to a $300 increase, but that was really my maximum. It was as if they hadn't seen my email where I had offered a $300 increase. Instead, they came back to me saying, after careful review, we've decided that we'd love for you to stay and we're increasing your rent by $50. It's like my mind was blown. Like, how did this happen? I literally in the prior email offered a 300 increase as my max, which thank God I honestly couldn't afford it. I mean, I honestly was hitting me at the very, very top end of my budget, the most I could possibly do. But $50, like, what? How is this possible? How is this happening? And so this is just to prove to you that really the how, the magic in things is beyond us. Like, I literally offered to a business to pay a different amount and an amount that was higher, and somehow they decided to give me only a $50 increase. And that's exactly what I had asked the universe. And that's exactly what I had asked as a sign. If that isn't magic, I don't know what is. I loved how Mikey, our friend, was like, okay, you guys are witches. We all have this power within us. And it's a practice. It's a practice in believing. It's a practice in allowing your faith to be greater than your fear, to believe that things will work out when you trust that they will. Like, I think a lot of times we expect for things to happen in order for us to trust, but there has to be a level of belief that we show through surrendering, through just allowing things to happen. And so that is probably just one of my favorite stories on manifesting. And a more recent one is when I found a notebook from 2014 when I had spoken to my friend about what I want to do. He had asked me, like, what do you want to do with your life? And I remember writing, I had dated it for August of 2014. I had said, I just want to help people, but I don't know how to go about helping people. I want to help people be happier, to see life in a brighter way, to see life in a lighter way, and to find their happiness from within them. I had literally written what I'm doing now today in 2023. I want to say it was September or October of 2023 that I did my podcast episode on how to be happier from within. And about 10 years prior to that, 9 years prior to that, I had said and written this in my notebook that I just want to help people find what makes them feel fulfilled and be happy in their lives from within them, and not based on external things and things outside of their control or accomplishments and materialistic things. And I didn't know how I was going to go about it. And so, what happened was I applied for jobs and I moved to New York City, and it just kind of makes me believe that I had to experience what it takes to have things happen for you with the help of the universe, with the help of God, with the help of the creator, whoever you believe in, and then full circle and come back to where I am and do the work that I really wanted to do. So like seeing that I had written that in my notebook in 2014 and now it's 2024 and I'm doing that work 10 years later, the how was way beyond me. And I hope that that is what I'm conveying in all of these stories, is the how is beyond us. And it's just our ability to be able to trust that you can hand over things to the universe and take action. I'm not saying to not do anything, right? We have to really keep that in mind. So I just want to close with saying that things have their own timeline. Trust the process, release control, because things happen in their own way. Just quickly, I had a friend reach out to me saying that they're really frustrated with how much they're applying to jobs and they're not getting a response. And there's a company that they're really rooting for that's not hiring them. And I said, you know what, maybe there is something somewhere else that you need to experience. What it reminded me of was the previous CEO of Goldman Sachs, Lloyd Blankfein, prior to David Solomon. He would always share the story that he was never hired directly by Goldman. He had gone through several interviews, but always got rejected. And the only way he became a part of Goldman Sachs was because the company he worked for, he ended up with, was acquired by Goldman. And over the years, he grew through the firm and became the CEO. Can you believe the company he was the CEO of never hired him directly? He was indirectly hired into the company by way of acquisition. So on a one-on-one basis, the company rejected him. There's so many stories like this one. Like the founder of Twitter. The founder of Twitter applied to, I want to say Facebook or Apple. I think it was Apple. But they applied and did interviews and they didn't hire Jack Dorsey. And then he decided, you know what, I'm going to start my own app. And lo and behold, Twitter. And so there's always a reason. It's not rejection, it's redirection, it's protection. There's something else out there for you. And you never know, you might end up there. Like Lloyd Blankfein ended up at Goldman, but not the way he had thought. He could have never predicted the acquisition, right? But he still continued to pursue his dream, pursue what he wanted, and he ended up as the CEO. And again, there's so many stories like this one. And so what we need to do is to be clear, be crystal clear about the things that you want. So I highly suggest having this fun exercise of pursuing this fun exercise of creating a vision board or just writing down things you want. But what I want to encourage you to do is, I shared something on my Instagram at the end of February for leap year, and it's still leap year because we won't have another April 29th until 2028. So I was suggesting for everyone to write 29 things that they want to manifest by 2028, and like writing it somewhere, maybe your Apple Notes, like your phone's notes, or a notebook that you will have handy, and write down everything that you want to manifest, and write it down in present tense in a way in which it's like giving gratitude for you having had experienced it. Or you can first write it down as you want, like however feels comfortable to you, but just write it down, create the intention. And not only will it expand your mind, maybe write down more, write down as many as you can, but it will be fun to look back and see what happened, in what way, in which way. And this stuff just like really moves me and just excites me so much to see that we each have these powers of creating our life experience, of our reality through our choices, through empowering ourselves to want what we want, to be unstoppable in pursuing the things that excite us. So I hope that these stories have some fun takeaways for you. Remember that accepting and enjoying where we are, because accepting and enjoying where you are will make your now moment better, more fun. And because you'll be enjoying where you are and what you have, you'll align with more of what you want. You'll align better and faster with what you want. Because a lot of times we tend to get so stuck on not having what we want that we go in that downward spiral of not having, missing, losing. We end up losing the things that we have. Like, this is very clear in terms of relationships. Sometimes people damage and sabotage their relationships with people they love because they're so focused on what they don't have that they may bring that energy into that connection by complaining and talking about everything that they hate, they don't like, that it drains the other people out of their life too. And so I think that is a really important takeaway. I think it's fun to note that there's not enough emphasis put on action in manifestation teachings. Actions we take and how we show up every day to raise our vibration, to feel good, to really supercharge the steps that we take with that positive intention. And by doing so, we align ourselves with our goals. I think a lot of times we think that it doesn't matter, I'm just showing up. But honestly, what I have done for myself is I've created a list of reminders. I have a list of reminders of affirmations. I have a list of reminders of how I want to start something, what my intention is. Just reminding myself of my intention helps me get back on track. So, I hope that there is nuggets in here for you to take away and apply to your life and your manifestations. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have stories you want to share. Let me know if you want to come on the podcast. I always love hearing from you guys. I think that if you have something that you believe will help people, there's a reason why you feel that way and that people should hear it and receive it. So let me know your thoughts. If you're looking for a coach to help you with your manifestations, to clear limiting beliefs, to help propel you forward, to get you unstuck, let me know. I love working with you guys on this. It's my passion. If you can't hear it in my voice, I'm smiling. I truly love doing this. I love seeing you thrive and go from scarcity to abundance and go from limiting beliefs to empowered, to encouraged, to supported. And again, there's a lot of ways to do these things on your own, but the value and time and acceleration we receive by doing it together is immeasurable. So it speaks for itself. Anyway, I love you guys. I'm so grateful you were here. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your feedback. Sending you so much love. Have a beautiful month of April and talk to you next week.